to grab something to eat.
Well, before you take a bite out of that apple, ask yourself, why is food so important? Sure, you eat food when you're hungry, but what does food do for you? That's easy. Food is your fuel. Your body gets energy from food. Energy to breathe, walk, talk, run, blink, eat, stay alive. Your whole body uses the goodies that are in food, like vitamins, proteins, and fats. These good things, called nutrients, give you energy and nourishment. In order for your body to get this energy, the food must be broken down into smaller and smaller pieces, small enough so your body's cells can use them. To do this, food must go on a quest to digest.
Pack your bags, Mr. Apple. You're going on a trip.
Chew on this. Believe it or not, there are many organs, or body parts, that help in the digestion process. Let's start with your mouth, the place where digestion begins. It's pretty obvious what is happening there. Your teeth help tear food into small parts. Now, to brush up on teeth, you have different types that do different jobs. To bite into an apple, you use your front teeth, called incisors. Your pointy canine teeth tear at the apple, while your molars grind it up with their flat surfaces.
Like a dog?
Not really.
Like a mole?
Food must be small enough for you to swallow it correctly. That's why your mom always says, chew your food well. It's true. You should chew and chew and chew.
Gulp.
About time.
Open wide. What else is in your mouth besides teeth? Your tongue helps you chew and swallow. And don't forget about saliva, or spit. That's the watery liquid made by the salivary gland, which empties saliva into your mouth through tiny ducts or tubes. You'd be surprised what's in all that stuff. Saliva contains water and enzymes, special helper proteins that chemically break down foods called carbohydrates, which are starches and sugars. Saliva also has mucus in it, that slimy, gooey stuff that's in your nose. It sounds yucky, but mucus helps food slide down your throat. Once it is physically broken down by your teeth, food mixes with saliva and forms a package called a bolus. You may think saliva is gross, but it's really great to salivate. You don't even have to think about salivating. Your body does it for you. You could smell food or even just think about it, and your brain kicks into action, telling the salivary glands to make saliva. Saliva also buddies up with your taste buds, so you can taste food. It even helps to keep your mouth clean by getting rid of leftover food particles and some of the bacteria in your mouth. I bet you thought only toothpaste could do that.
I smell food. Start drooling, troops.
Yes, sir.
It's a long road. Gulp! You just swallowed some apple. Now where did that bolus go? It's moving from your pharynx into your esophagus, or food tube, which is about 10 inches long. A cool little flap called the epiglottis covers your trachea at this point, so that food goes to the esophagus and not down the trachea. Food in the trachea causes us to cough or choke. So, good job, epiglottis.
Go 2 inches and then make a right at the trachea.
There's something else hanging around that helps you. It's your uvula. That's the little thing that hangs down in the back of your throat. Open your mouth and look. You can see it. Your soft palate, the roof of your mouth near your uvula, works with your uvula to cover the opening to your nasal passages when you swallow. This way, food can't go up the wrong way into your nose. Give me a squeeze, please. How does the bolus travel down the esophagus? It doesn't just drop down, it has some help. The bolus is pushed down the esophagus, little by waves of muscle contractions called peristalsis. Muscles of the esophagus contract or squeeze. This moves the bolus down the esophagus in about 3 to 4 seconds. Then the bolus goes through a ring of muscles called a sphincter, which opens to let food enter the stomach. The sphincter at the bottom of the esophagus is called the lower esophageal sphincter.
This is kind of fun.
So, what's up with belching? All sphincters in the body act like doors, letting things go through one way just a little at a time. Food and liquid go through the lower esophageal sphincter to the stomach. When you drink certain things, such as soda, air can get into your stomach. When this happens, that air can travel backward through the lower esophageal sphincter and up the esophagus. The next thing you may hear is a burp or belch. Oh, excuse me. Blap!
How rude!
Upset stomach? Now the bolus is in the amazing stomach. You might think, what's so amazing about the stomach? It's just an organ where your food goes, right? Well, there's a lot more to the stomach than meets the eye. Gastric juices are produced here. Stomach muscles churn, and chyme is made here. There's quite a party going on, but how does the stomach use all this stuff?
You call this a party?
We have such chemistry. The stomach digests food chemically. Different cells in the stomach wall, or lining, make different chemicals, called gastric juices, that help break down food. Some cells make enzymes, some cells make acid, and other cells make mucus. A stomach enzyme called pepsin breaks down proteins in foods such as meat. Pepsin needs acid around it in order to work. But where are you going to get acid in your stomach? Luckily, there are cells in your stomach that make hydrochloric acid, which is so strong it could burn a hole in this book. Wait a minute. Why doesn't this acid burn a hole in your stomach lining? Well, your stomach makes something cool that protects its lining. What's our hero? It's mucus. Without it, your stomach would be in a lot of trouble. And so would you. Actually, hydrochloric acid is a hero too, because it kills some of the germs that might be in the foods you eat.
Oops, sorry. No refunds.
As the stomach churns. Your stomach is also quite strong. Well, it couldn't beat you at arm wrestling, but it has muscles that squeeze or churn. This action makes food smaller. It's like you're working out while you eat. Make time for chyme. Chewing, churning, and chemicals. Oh my! Food has been broken down a lot at this point. In fact, by the time food leaves the stomach, it kind of looks like melted ice cream. This partially digested food and acid mixture is called chyme. What's up, Chuck? When everything is working right in the stomach, you might not think about things like acid and mucus. But if a virus makes you sick, food can go out the wrong way. Yes, vomiting is very unpleasant, but it's the body's way of getting rid of invaders. It can even cause a burning feeling in the esophagus because of the acid that comes up with the food. Okay, I'm sorry I brought up that subject. In order to leave the stomach the right way, food goes through another sphincter, called the pyloric sphincter, into the next fascinating place, the small intestine. Diving into the small intestine. The small intestine is where the job of digestion is finished. This organ looks like a coiled-up tube and measures about 1 inch in diameter. Does it really need to be coiled up? Well, consider this. The small intestine is about 20 feet long. That's much longer than you are tall. So, in order for it to fit inside your body, it must be coiled. The small intestine is split into 3 sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. It's a very busy place. The body sends in assistants from all over to help finish the job of digesting chyme. Lending a hand. The pancreas, a nearby gland, sends over enzymes to digest carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. The liver lends a hand by making bile, which is then stored in the gallbladder until it's time to go to the small intestine. Bile's job is to help break down fats. Needless to say, the small intestine is a digester's dream come true.
This is hard work.
Happy cells. The body has done a great job of digesting food so far. So now what does the body do with all those tiny food particles? After the big party in the duodenum, tiny food particles are absorbed by or pass through the small intestine's lining and go into the bloodstream. If the food is not absorbed in the duodenum, it can still be absorbed later in the jejunum or the ileum. Let's get even closer. Closer. Food moves around in the small intestine, stirred by finger-like nutrient-absorbing projections in the intestinal wall, called villi. Those tiny food particles go through the villi before they pass into the blood vessels of the small intestine. Many of these food particles travel through the bloodstream and are delivered to the body's cells. The happy little cells now have food to use in a cool chemical reaction called cellular respiration. Oxygen, which came in at the lungs, has also been delivered to the cells at this point. food, oxygen, and water in the cells react. This reaction, cellular respiration, produces carbon dioxide, water, and, most importantly, energy. This energy can be used for bodily functions such as making your heart beat, breathing, repairing cells, and even digesting your food. A large help. Wait a minute. It's great that we get energy from all this, but what happens to stuff we eat that doesn't go to cells? Well, if your body doesn't digest it and can't use it, you get rid of it. Just like we put things we can't use in a garbage can, our body puts stuff it can't use, or wastes, into the large intestine. At 5 feet long, the large intestine is actually shorter than the small intestine. But the large intestine gets its big name because it's wider than the small intestine. Wastes travel from the small intestine to the large intestine's cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon, and finally to the rectum and anus. Some important things happen to wastes as they travel through the large intestine. When they arrive in the cecum, wastes are very liquidy, but not for long. Water is recycled or reabsorbed from the wastes, so your body doesn't lose the water it needs to stay hydrated. Another thing that happens in the large intestine is that wastes are formed into feces with the help of mucus. Again, mucus helps our body by protecting the large intestine as feces prepare to exit the body.
Going up?
A happy ending. Feces are made mostly of water and undigested foods. Mucus lining the intestinal walls makes it easier for the feces to leave the body. The rectum at the end of the large intestine is the waiting room where wastes hang out until they can leave the body. The very end of the large intestine, called the anus, includes an opening which is controlled by sphincter muscles. That's why you have control over when to use the restroom to get rid of these wastes.
Thanks.
Your little friends. Another important job of the large intestine is that it's home to some little friends. These friends are helpful bacteria that make vitamin K for you. Vitamin K helps keep your blood healthy. Bacteria also help to keep things in your large intestine working right. In fact, when the number of these bacteria is lowered, you can get diarrhea, which causes your body to lose water. Wastes come out very liquidy instead of solid. So the next time you feel something happening and hear gurgling in your intestine, get ready. It may be the runs. If some undigested food makes it to your large intestine, it might be eaten or digested by these bacteria. You might think, what's the harm? They help me. I can give them a little food, right? Well, in return for the food, the bacteria give you something. Gas. They sometimes produce smelly gases known as flatulence.
Was that you?
No, it was the bacteria in my large intestine.
From start to finish.
Tongue, salivary glands, esophagus, stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus.
Wow!
So, in a nutshell, digestion is a cool but sometimes gross process that breaks down the food you eat. Some nutrients can then go to body cells to take part in bodily functions. What you can't use leaves the body as waste. So, let's hear it for digestion, because you couldn't be at your best without the quest to digest.
Grumble, grumble.
But I'm still hungry.